Hey there, I'm Jessica Lauren Walton, and this is the Insecurity Podcast. If there's a cool story in the security field or just something that I think will be useful for my fellow professionals, then I want to talk about it. To learn more about the work I do as a writer, you can go ahead and visit my blog at www.jessicawaltonwriter.com. Today on the show, I'm honored to welcome Dalia Ziada, a remarkable Middle East security expert, author, and dear friend. And yes, she has been over for Walton dinner time. Dalia is originally from Cairo. She was recognized for playing a central role in the civil society movement that sparked Egypt's 2011 revolution against the Mubarak regime. She was named by CNN as one of 8 agents of change in the Middle East and twice listed by the Daily Beast as one of the most fearless women in the world. Dalia's story and her tireless fight for liberal democracy have been featured in best-selling books, where she's described as part of the pink hijab generation, young women committed to faith, femininity, and freedom. She's also been a courageous advocate for Israel, something I deeply admire as an American Israeli Jew. After October 7th, Dalia publicly condemned Hamas and defended Israel's right to protect its people. Her moral stand led to serious threats in Egypt and ultimately forced her to seek asylum here in the United States. Today, she continues to speak out with brilliance and bravery, and I'm honored to welcome her to the Insecurity Podcast. So Yala, I've said enough. Let's go in there and speak to Dalia. Hi, Dalia. Salam alaikum. How are
Hi,
you?
hi, Jessica. Great to see you. How are you?
Oh, I'm definitely looking forward to our next coffee date. And things are moving fast in the Middle East. So let's jump right in. You've shared how growing up in Egypt exposed you to widespread anti-Israel sentiment. How did outlets like Al Jazeera shape public opinion in your youth?
Oh, wow. When I was when I was literally a teenager starting my life and trying to learn about the world, Al Jazeera was one of the main outlets that was actually educating my generation about regional politics because we live in a region where free expression is not a thing at all. It's not,
Right.
it's not even an option. And unfortunately, all the time we were only limited to certain narratives, certain TV stations. And for the first time in late 90s and early 2000s, we started to see TV stations from other countries and from other places, thanks to the satellite and the internet invention and all of
Mhm.
that. So Al Jazeera was one of the main outlets where people in the Arab world went to get news about the world. It was kind of the CNN of our time, but in Arabic. And of course, it's very interesting. Like the momentum for Al Jazeera and how it became popular in the region was the time of the Second Intifada around the year
Mm.
2000. It was the time when Al Jazeera at that time was the only media outlet allowed to get into Gaza and film things there and even have interviews with the suicide bombers before they do the
Yeah.
suicide bombing and have access to Hamas and Hamas leaders and so it had this exclusive access to places that made it more popular and made people even depend more on it as a source for news from this area. And then later, after the 9/11 attacks in 2001 and the 9/11 in the US and the rise of Al Qaeda and its name worldwide, they were also the only TV stations that has exclusive rights to or exclusive access to Al Qaeda and its leaders. And they have interviews with them. Even I remember
Mm.
Osama bin Laden's statements when they come out, they go to Al Jazeera first, Al Jazeera TV first,
Yeah.
they broadcast them, and then media outlets worldwide take from Al Jazeera, which was very interesting. That's how Al Jazeera built its reputation, and that's also how Qatar actually built its reputation as the master of terrorist organizations in the region, kind of.
Yeah, well, I think this is a reminder, especially when you're reading or trying to educate yourself about conflicts overseas, to always check the sources, right? I can't tell you how many
Oh,
people have told me things about Israel that I said that doesn't make any sense. When I asked them, like, well, where are you getting that information? They're like, Al Jazeera.
exactly. Actually, all other sources in Arabic sources, I mean, are a disaster. Like right now, I tell you, like every morning I wake up, I have to open like seven websites, news websites from seven countries, seven different countries all over the
Yeah,
region,
I bet.
just to get a good understanding or some sense of credibility for the news I'm getting. And I have to exert a lot of effort to compare the news with each other and make sure that I am not being manipulated by one outlet versus the other. It's a lot of work.
Right. That's a good point that even if you are educated about certain conflicts, it's still so hard sometimes to sift through the media and the different perspectives that come through. You know, it's funny. I
Yeah.
always I played this mind game before where I thought to myself, you know, if I had grown up in an Arab country and all I knew was Al Jazeera or the like, and that's all I knew about Israel, would I have been able to figure out like this isn't true? There's another story behind this, and would I have the courage to go after that story? And I don't know. That's the answer. I don't know because it's a very hard thing to do. And that's, you know, something I wanted to talk to you about as well. Can you describe your personal journey from early exposure to biased narratives, such as through Al Jazeera, to becoming a critic of media propaganda? You know, was there ever a specific turning point for you in that journey?
It's a very good point that you made, Jessica, because actually, yes, it's very true. It's very hard. I understand, like, really, I have a lot of sympathy today when I look at the people in my home country, Egypt, or elsewhere in the region. I mean, in the Arab countries who are very hostile towards Israel. I have
Right.
sympathy to them because I know where they are coming from. I know how they have been brought up, what was told to them. I give you my own example, actually. I grew up in a society that was always telling me since I was a kid that Israel is our historical enemy. They always use this word. Although
Right.
Egypt and Israel have a peace treaty, they never call it a peace treaty in Egypt. They call it a strategic agreement with Israel, but not a peace treaty. And all the media stations, even the TV shows like soap opera shows, like entertainment shows, are uh, are portraying the Israeli people and the Jewish people in general as evil and as hostile to us or as enemies. So growing up and all, even in mosques, in the mosque, every day, every Friday, in Friday sermons, there is a stable prayer against, it's a curse actually, a stable curse of the Jewish people and those who support them. So imagine growing up in this environment. It's impossible to be able to think of Israel otherwise until you really learn the truth, until you have a different experience. This was my experience until I was 18 years old. I also grew up
Mm.
thinking that Israel is the enemy. Jewish people are evil, they want to kill us, and eventually, like something miraculous will happen and we will kill all of them, and then the Messiah will come after this happens.
Yeah.
Really, I mean it's literally in our scripture, it's in our religion, it's in our heritage. It's crazy. So this was the case for me until I was 18 years old, a freshman student, or a fresh woman, as I
Mhm.
like to call it, a student in a university in Cairo. And it was exactly the year of the second intifada.
Mm.
And I was like thousands of other students on my campus who were participating in protests against Israel. And of course, very influenced by the footage of coming from Al Jazeera. And so I remember even these footage were shown on very big screens on my campus. So yes, I joined these protests for about like 2 months or so, until one day in the protest, the people organizing the protest, to whom later on I discovered are the Muslim Brotherhood.
Hmm.
And if people don't know, the Muslim Brotherhood is the parent organization of Hamas. So what they did is that they decided to make a show in the protest by burning some flags. So they started by burning the Israeli flag, which made sense because it's a protest against Israel. Then they burned the American flag, which was a big
Right.
question mark for me. I didn't understand what's
Right.
going on. And then they burned the Egyptian flag. And this
Hmm.
for me was like, what's going on? Like something's wrong here. If you know, in Egypt, we have very strong national sentiments, and we are raised like on this idea of respecting the flag, honoring the flag all the time. Every morning in the school, you have to honor the flag before you go to classes.
Hmm.
So imagine growing up like this, and then all of a sudden, people are burning the Egyptian flag in public. And I asked myself, like, why they are burning it exactly for Gaza? Why would I care for Gaza? If they don't care for my country, why would I care for them? And this was literally the moment I was popped up out of the ideological box I was stuck into
Hmm.
my whole life. And I started to take a step back from everything and educate myself about what's going on, about the region, about geopolitics, about Israel,
What
about
were some of those sources that you were looking at?
actually it's interesting if you know that in Egypt there is in almost every university, governmental universities, there is a department for Hebrew studies.
No way.
Exactly, right? Yeah, I told you.
Okay.
Yeah, everywhere. But it is meant to be studying Hebrew, Judaism, and Israel, not in love of this culture, but actually to
Right.
be prepared to deal with your enemy. This is the logic of these departments.
Right.
So I went actually to the library in my university, to this department's library, and I kept reading about Israel. What is Israel? What is this civilization actually that's called the Hebrew culture? What is this? Who are the Jewish people? Where they come
Yeah.
from? All of these things, you know? And I was so impressed. It's a great nation. It's a great nation, really. And Judaism is such a great religion, especially its emphasis on current life, on making this life a great place. Not like in Islam, the logic in Islam is more like forget about this life, it's not gonna last forever. Focus on the second next life, the life after.
Hmm.
We like in somewhere. So it's but for me, I was always against this idea because I believe if we are not good in this life, we will not be good in the afterlife. If this life is not good, the afterlife will not be good. And Judaism actually gave this to me in my face. Like they told me, yes, you're right. It was like validating the thing I've always been struggling with in terms of this concept in Islam, I mean. So it's a great religion, great
Hmm.
people. And then it has become my mission since then to advocate for Arab Israeli dialogue and for Muslim Jewish dialogue. And actually, I had great time doing this. I worked after I graduated. I worked with an organization here in the U.S. that is focused exactly on this. I studied geopolitics, which is
Hmm.
my passion. Which has become my passion after I educated myself about our region and so. So here I am now. A very different person than I was when I was 18 years old.
Wow. Yeah, that's really special that you decided to dig deep. And very interesting that the materials you didn't have to go far. They were at your university. You just came to a different conclusion than they wanted you to come to.
Exactly, exactly. They are everywhere, and also there is a cultural center affiliated to the American Embassy in Egypt. It has great, great resources on these issues. So yeah, and also at that time the internet was very new, and like I used also to use to go to several resources online. So yeah, it's very interesting. It was quite an interesting journey. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah, so you didn't have any issues as you didn't come into any conflict initially with the Egyptian government as you were becoming more interested in Israel and the Jewish community. I know that you had
So
issues later after October 7th, obviously, but
I
at the
was
time, Not a
I was only
problem.
a kid at the time. I was very low profile. Uh, Problems started to happen later on when I
Mhm.
became more vocal on Muslim Jewish dialogue and Arab Israeli dialogue. And
Yeah.
I started working with an American organization. Yes, at that time, like they started to attack me. I lost a lot of friends on the way
Mm.
and even a lot of family members from my extended family, I mean. And yeah, I had a very, very difficult time. But actually, it was not as bad and as terrible as what happened recently, what happened after the October 7 attack. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
all of the time I hear accusations, people write about me in the news, even bad things. And so, but and try to call me like I'm allying with Israel against Egypt interests, which is absolutely not true. I'm only someone calling for peace. I'm not allying with anyone against anyone. So yeah, this kept to be the case until October 7 happened, the October 7 attack on Israel. As horrific as it was, I felt compelled just to speak up for the victims of October 7, especially after I saw the videos of what happened. Like it was
Mm.
not just an attack, just another attack by Hamas or a
Right.
clash between Israeli soldiers and Hamas militants as they claimed in our Arab media at the initial days of the attack. But when I saw the videos, I saw the women being raped and elderly being kidnapped, children being slaughtered, all these horrible people killed in the street, literally killed in the street, families crying over their. Oof, I mean, it's terrible. These scenes are still haunting me until today.
Yeah.
Nightmares. I can't really imagine the people who lived through it, how they feel, how they are gonna live, like how they are gonna survive this trauma. It's really bad. And at that, after I watched that, I felt compelled to speak up for these victims, to say that what's happening is wrong, especially because my people, my Muslim people, my Arab people, we're celebrating what's happening as a victory. We're celebrating the October 7
Right.
attack as a victory. So I just wanted to tell them it's wrong. You shouldn't. You don't know what happened on October 7th to celebrate it. It's so brutal. It's so inhuman. So I went to my social media platforms. I have a very good following there in terms
Yeah.
not only of numbers, but also in terms of quality. I mean, important people are there. So I just went there and started to speak out about it. And a horrible backlash was immediately stirred against me, first by radical Islamists who openly, vocally wanted to kill me. And they said, made fatwas that my blood is sacred no more because now I am a friend of the or an ally of the Jews. And in Islam, actually, there is a
Right.
justification for that. If you ally with the Jews, you are one of them, and your blood is sacred no more, and we can kill you. This was their fatwa. So sadly, when I contacted the security authorities in Egypt to tell them that my life is in danger, especially
Right.
after a group of Salafists they are literally thugs in religious clothing. They went to my family house looking for me. They wanted to punish me for not being a good Muslim in their eyes because how dare I condemn Hamas? So when I contacted the security authorities in Egypt to tell them that I need protection, my life is in danger, what happened, unfortunately, is that a very senior officer I spoke to, and he's very powerful man, he could have protected me very easily. He said to me, "We have nothing to do with you anymore. You incurred this to yourself, and you deserve what you get." And I told him, "They're going to kill me. Aren't you also against Hamas? Because logically, Egypt is against Hamas too.
Right.
Aren't you
Yeah.
also against Hamas?" They said to me, "It's about Israel. You said you support Israel." So for
Mm.
him, my crime was that I said I support Israel's right to defend itself. And for the radical Islamists, my crime was that I condemned Hamas and I said what they did is not acceptable.
Mm.
So I immediately had to escape because also in addition to that, there were a number of legal claims that were filed against me at the Attorney General's office, uh, accusing me of all sorts of things. And by the way, they were filed by lawyers close to the Egyptian regime, to my surprise, actually, accusing me of all sorts of things, starting with threatening Egypt's national security. Like, look at me,
Yeah.
I am a
Yeah.
threat to Egypt's national security, and committing high treason, and the funniest of all, actually, spying for the Israeli Mossad. So imagine, like a very public spy, very public spy.
Oh,
So
the ultimate accusation. Yes.
yeah, exactly, so I had to leave very quickly, and
Right.
what I did from my apartment, I was very scared actually. I was hiding in my apartment, turning off all the lights so nobody knows that I'm inside. And so I texted all the people I know worldwide, saying help and writing like two lines about what's going on, what was happening at that time. I mean, two of them responded immediately, one in New York, who's also Jewish, and another friend
Mhm.
in Israel, a brave,
Yes.
great friend in Israel, friend of ours, you know
Yes, our
him.
mutual friends. We have several. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So they came together and they formed a team that was heroically able to evacuate me from Egypt in 5 hours before something bad happens to me, before I'm arrested, before I'm killed or so. And thank God, my life was saved. I came here thinking, oh, thank God I left the bad guys behind. I'm coming to the United States where things are definitely much calmer. Definitely things are not as bad as they are in the Middle East. Hamas is not here. Iran is not here. But guess what? They are here. They are everywhere. They are just wreaking havoc inside the United States, targeting people like me, harassing the Jewish people. And it's terrible. It's terrible in many ways.
And we also see what's happening on the American college campuses since October 7th. That must be quite a shock. I have Afghan friends, by the way, who fled the Taliban, and they told me that in addition to, the other terrorist right, there's Hezbollah, there's Hamas, they said they were seeing Taliban flags as well. And it just kind of reminds you that this
Wow.
is yeah, yeah, they sent me pictures, and that was, understandably freaking them out, considering where they just came from. And I was shocked. But then when you think about it, it makes sense because it is part of a larger jihad. And yeah, and it's been important to speak out and to show people like what's going on inside America, not just overseas.
Absolutely. Actually, what Hamas did on October 7 kind of gave a momentum to Islamist organizations worldwide that they can do the same thing as well in their communities, whether these communities are in the Middle East or in the West. And here they are. They started immediately coordinating with each other, coming from under the ground to the top of the ground, and just abusing
Yeah.
the democracy and the free speech and the open society in Western countries just to promote their evil ideas and evil ideology.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. It's been really disturbing to see, and to also see how unaware people are, of the source of this. So putting aside the American colleges for a moment, on this topic of propaganda, what mechanisms do you see as most effective today in disrupting anti-Israel narratives in Arab media?
Okay, interesting. Okay, today, like as we speak right now, oh, it's very complicated
Yeah,
today, especially, after all this hate was once again projected after the October 7 attack and all this unjustified sympathy we saw in Arab media outlets towards Hamas and their actions, just
right,
out of hate to Israel, by the way. And the same later on towards Iran, like they supported Iran just out of hate to Israel. Not because they really support Iran, but out of hate to Israel, they are ready to
right.
support anyone who's fighting against Israel, even the devil itself. So this is exactly the logic in the Arab countries right now and in the mainstream, in the media. I think it's even more and more complicated right now just to try to reverse this or to uh, take away anti-Semitic rhetoric. But thank God we are not dependent on traditional media outlets anymore. We have this
Hmm.
very powerful tool called social media. Yes,
Right.
for so long it has been occupied and hijacked by radical Islamists, by Hamas supporters, by the Muslim Brotherhood, and so. But we also have this tool in our hands too. And it's our role just to create more content that can challenge their narratives, that can educate people
Right.
about the truth. And actually, I started to see some people doing this already by challenging all the narratives that these people are trying to say. And that's why this camp, this evil camp, is getting very mad actually at
Yeah.
people. They go and, they troll people on social media. And so the people who are saying the truth, because they want to be the exclusive owners of the narrative. So they can say whatever they want. Now they are being challenged about history, the history of the region, about the politics of the region, about the truth behind all of this, about the legitimacy even of their so-called Palestinian cause and all of this stuff.
Right.
So yeah, we are seeing a change happening. It's too late, actually, to be honest, on social media, I mean, but better late than never, know.
Yeah, I mean, look, you can present people with information, but you can't force them to see the other perspective. They have to be willing to be intellectually honest enough to dig in and to come to those conclusions themselves. But I have seen in recent years, especially after October 7th, several brave Arabs, such as yourself, who are speaking up in support of Israel, who are even visiting Israel and meeting with Jewish communities. And,
Yes.
they have some significant followings. I can think like Rawan Osman, Lowy Al Sharif, and and I think that's also really powerful. At least, you have, and I'm sure that's a shock, by the way, for young Arabs who've never
It's a
had
shock.
exposure to, their, fellows who are like, hey, I'm meeting with Jews. I've visited Israel. It's not what you think. And then it's their choice whether they're going to pursue more information that challenges what they were brought up to believe, which is very hard to go against. And that's why, by the way, I said if I had grown up in Egyptian society, I don't know if I would have come to that conclusion that Israel is not the monster that I was raised to believe it is. But I think
Yeah.
that's really important to have, we're kind of almost in a postmodern time in the world of media, where social media, where influencers are, right, are taking more space in that world of attention.
But let me tell you, even to give you more and more hope about this, actually, it's not
Yeah.
only the handful number of people whom you are seeing on social media, handful number of Arabs, I mean, who dare to go on social media and speak up. It's not only this, actually, the number is much larger than this. And I call them, they are the growing minority in the Middle East. They are
Yes.
growing and they do exist. At the same time, I was receiving death threats on my way out of Egypt. I was also receiving, until today actually, messages of support from young Arabs who are telling me
Hmm.
you're doing the right thing. We are with you, but we cannot speak up in public about it because we will pay a heavy price for it and we cannot pay this price.
Mm.
So these people do exist. However, the bad guys have the loudest voice. This is it.
Right. But I wonder when there's going to be a breaking point where there's enough people willing to speak up that it doesn't become it's not so taboo anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I hope, yes. As I think, as things calm down in the region, as
Hmm.
there is, as peace becomes like the, and I think we are closer to peace now than ever, by the way, because of the escalation as it's now getting to the top of the curve, and it will start to go down the
Mm.
military escalation for sure, and we will see more initiatives of rapprochement between Arabs and Israelis that we did not even expect before. And maybe the starting point will come from a place that will surprise you, which is Syria. We
Mm.
may very soon see some kind of a Syrian-Israeli agreement that nobody thought about. So yes, it's very important to keep this in mind that peace will eventually be here, will eventually come, and work towards this goal. Work to achieve this, regardless of all the challenges we are dealing with.
Right. Inshallah.
Yes. Yeah.
Everything going on in Iran, it's just unfolding so rapidly. Um, the last, piece of news that we have is that there is a ceasefire brokered between Iran and Israel, a very fragile ceasefire. We'll see how that turns out. And there's also, this question. There's a lot of questions about this war, and one of them being, will there be regime change in Iran, right? So, based on your experience participating in regime change in Egypt several years ago, what lessons or cautionary insights would you offer when considering the possibility of regime change in Iran?
Oh, wow. This is a very good question, Jessica. Actually, I want to mention an incident. Like the reason why I started use Twitter in the year, like I registered in 2008 and only I started use it in 2009. And
Mhm.
the reason I started use it in 2009 was actually after to follow on the news coming from Iran. There was a big upheaval at that time. I think it was called the Green Revolution after the election or something. People went out and asking like, where did my vote go? And it was so impressive. And I remember Egyptians at that time, like Egyptian youth at that time, like myself,
Yeah.
were saying like, oh, if it happened in Iran, it will happen next in Egypt. And we were very, very sympathetic with what's going, like cheering for them, on social media, on Twitter,
Mm.
which is X now. I don't like to use X, so so on Twitter. So what's how? So then this was actually this to tell you how much we are very linked to the Iranian people. Um, so whether the Iranian people right now will be able to remove their regime under this external pressure that's falling on the heads and shoulders of the Iranian regime, I don't think we should not depend very much on this because
Mm.
yes, the Iranian people are like at least 80% of them are against the regime, but they have been trying for decades to remove it and it did not happen. I
Yeah.
think the best bet is to support the Israeli campaign on this regime that's happening right now for other reasons. That's happening to end the nuclear proliferation, to destroy the ballistic missile capabilities of Iran, and plus ridding not only the Iranians but the entire Middle East region of this evil Iranian regime, of the Ayatollah regime in Iran. Which has, by the way, they have been with their militia and proxies, they have been wreaking havoc in Arab countries as well, and starving people, divesting Arab countries, destroying them, violating their territories, violating their sovereignty, and so on. So yes, it's time to do that, but the question is how to make this happen. And speaking about what you said about the ceasefire, it's not only fragile, I agree with you, it's very fragile, of course,
Yeah.
but it's fragile because it's immature. Calling for ceasefire right now is literally uh, like holding Israel's hand and throwing a lifeline to the Iranian regime. And it's not for the advantage of anyone.
Mm.
This war, there is still to be done in this war. Yes, the US shot the nuclear proliferation sites of Iran,
Mhm.
but this is not the whole story. There are two more things that needs to happen, and Israel has been already doing this. One of them is destroying the
Mhm.
ballistic missiles capabilities of Iran to ensure the security not only of Israel but of Arab countries too. And second, to end this regime, to overthrow this Iranian regime. Until this happens, we cannot call for ceasefire. It doesn't make any sense. So, but why President Trump decided to do this now? I
Mhm.
think because of the state of panic that happened in the region since the Iranian missile attack on Qatar yesterday. People say that this attack was coordinated with Qatar, it's orchestrated just to give
Hmm.
a certain, but no. I know from my own resources inside Qatar. People I know inside Qatar. They are not
Hmm.
Qataris, they are people working and living there. But they know it was not coordinated at all. Qatar did not see it coming. And actually, they expected anything could happen, like Iran could fire on any other base, like they did on Iraq, for example, after the killing of Qasem Soleimani a few years ago. But they will never think of shooting over Qatar because Qatar is their ally, supposedly. It's their
Right.
ally. They're very strong ally, and they have to tell them. So this state of panic is not. Of course, it's very big in Qatar right now, and it's also echoing in other Arab Gulf countries who are now concerned about their security, about their economies, about their region, because Gulf states have a different nature from the rest of the region. So I'm sure they signaled to the United States that this needs to be de-escalated and things has to calm down in the region. And
Mm.
of course, because President Trump cares so much for his partnership with, especially economic partnership with Arab Gulf countries, he had to come out today, this morning, and make all the statements that we've been hearing him saying, like, Israel has to stop, Israel should not like shoot this bomb, and
Right.
Iran, there will be a ceasefire between Israel and Iran, and all of these things. So yes, it's mainly meant to assure, like President Trump's statements of ceasefire between Israel and Iran so quickly is meant to assure Arab Gulf countries that they are secure, their
Mm.
security is preserved, this will not go too far, and this war will not go too far.
Right. And there's probably pressure on the American side as well. People who are concerned about how America's got involved long term in Afghanistan and Iraq and the toll that took. And of course, this is a very different situation, but you can understand from not so long ago when America withdrew from Afghanistan and that don't really have an appetite for getting involved, too intensely in a Middle East war, right?
And it's
So
not
it's a
only going to
balancing
the Middle
act. Yeah.
East. It's not going to be only a Middle East war, actually. If the US continues like to intervene on a wider scale, it may extend to becoming a world war.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's something else to consider, right? I don't have personal connections in Qatar, but I definitely got the impression from what I was reading in the media that they were taken off guard and they were very unhappy about what was done. And Iran signaled ahead of time that they were going to do this attack, meaning it's like symbolically we're going to show that we retaliated to save face, but we don't want to kill too many people because then America's going to,
Okay.
turn us into a parking lot. So, yeah, but that's interesting that they chose, right, a target on Qatari soil, and the Qataris are very sensitive about their relationship with the Americans. So it's just interesting to see that Iran is taking certain measures that may isolate it further from its allies.
Yes, absolutely, actually, and the thing is that for a while now, Arab countries has been trying to appease Iran, trying to Saudi Arabia, for example, tried to have closer ties with Iran. UAE, although Iran is occupying actually parts of the UAE territory, they try to have negotiations with Iran and have like channels of communications open with Iran. And even after the beginning of its open war, because the war has been going on for so long, actually, through
Yeah.
militia and proxies, but its open war with Israel, they did not take the side of Israel, although they are very excited by the way that Israel is doing what it is doing in Iran. If you speak to people behind the closed doors in the Arab world, they are very happy, very happy, but they are also concerned about what could happen next. So despite all of that, they did not want to offend Iran in any way. Why? Because they were thinking that Iran is the stronger horse in the region,
Mm.
and Arabs like to bet on the stronger horse all the time. Now, this is not the case anymore. Israel is now a very strong power in the region, a strong military power, and what I would like to call an agenda setter It's now a country that is dictating what should happen to the future of the region. It's
Mm.
not anymore, this tiny country that's only defending itself against militia and terrorist organizations coming from everywhere, including from inside the country, like Hamas and the Islamic Jihad. And so now it's a regional power, it's a regional player. So the new Israel is different from then the old Israel, much stronger, much more determined, and it has a very strong military power that can actually ensure protection and security for these Arab countries, especially against two powerful powers in the region, Turkey and Iran.
Mhm.
So I think this will make a shift, like this war we are living right now will make kind of a shift to encourage more Arab countries actually to get closer to Israel, because now Israel is the stronger horse. And all what we've
Yeah.
been talking about, like, having like Israeli Saudi normalization, it's now, I think, much closer than ever.
Right. I think that's the hope. A lot of people in Israel. And I mean, you're looking around and you don't see anybody joining in on the attack right now, on Israel. The Houthis, threw a few missiles in there, symbolic, but they're staying out. Hezbollah is staying out of the fight. And I think that's very telling. Um, I think if Israel looked like it was in a weaker position, you might see other countries joining in on the attacks. Look, October 7th, right, was I think that degraded Israel's deterrence. And now we're seeing this come full circle. What was actually, in a way, initiated by October 7th, now we're seeing it come full circle where Israel is likely restoring that deterrence. Not just
It's
because of their
amazing, right?
firepower, but the
Because
intelligence capabilities. People are like, man, I don't know. What does Israel know about me, right? That they could use. So I think that, in a way, even though this is a very difficult time, um, I think in a way there is something positive coming out of it. And a lot of people in Israel, I mean, they knew this war was coming and they were preparing for it.
yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. And I'm actually more optimistic about the future of the region, more than pessimistic. And I think, yes,
Mm.
eventually we are going to get to this point of peace sooner or later, because as soon as Iran and its affiliated militias and groups, including Hamas even, it get out of the picture, the Middle East will be a much safer place to everyone else.
That is definitely the hope. So
Yeah.
looking ahead, what should Western policymakers prioritize when engaging with Iran to ensure stability in the Middle East?
What? Sorry, say it again. What is the?
Yeah, sure. So looking
Yeah.
ahead, what should Western policymakers prioritize when engaging with Iran to ensure stability in the Middle East? Like if you were sitting in the American government and you were being sent to negotiate with the Iranian government, whether that's the regime that survives or a new regime, what would be important for you to communicate to that government?
That's a very good question. So the first thing, they have to give up on this doctrine of exporting their Islamic revolution to other places, including in Asia or in the Arab world. It's not acceptable anymore. And their revolution should not be exported to anywhere else because it was a disaster on its own. It was a disaster to Iran, so they cannot just export this disaster to other countries. This is one thing. The other thing is to stop. They actually, it was so ironic, like after the bombing of their nuclear sites, they said it's an aggression on our sovereignty, it's against international law. But hey, for decades, the Iranian regime has been violating the sovereignty of Arab countries, of even countries in Asia, of everyone, and
Mhm.
partnering with criminal organizations in South America to hurt the United States, employing agents in the United States to get into the encampments. With the students on campuses under the flag of supporting Gaza, while actually they are chanting death to America on American soil and so
Mhm.
on. These are things that Iran is doing. Iran has to stop all of that, has to focus on its, I mean, the Iranian regime has to focus on its own people, that it, if it wants to survive. But actually, I don't think they will listen. They are very arrogant, very blinded by their arrogance, and they will not listen. And they are thinking that they are the leaders of the new world that will be like an
Hmm.
Islamic caliphate system or imamate, because they are Shia, an Islamic imamate system where they will be ruling over everyone else. But no, this is not going to happen. They have to realize this. They have to live peacefully, focus only on Iran, and try not to hurt and not to like use all their resources and power to hurt other countries, and forget about the nuclear proliferation for now. It's
Right, of
impossible to
course.
allow this uh, radical Islamic regime to have a nuclear bomb. Actually, look at the terrorists, what they are doing with just a few weapons in their hands. Look what the Houthis are doing in Yemen. Look what Hezbollah did in Lebanon and other militia. So imagine if these has nuclear bomb in their hands, what they are going to do to the world.
Right. Right. And that's what I hope that people realize is that this attack on the nuclear facilities in order to eliminate them is not just, oh, America's doing a favor for Israel. This is really a favor that Israel and America are doing for the entire world. So, something I have to
Exactly.
say that something that annoys me so much is this term rational actor. I mean, I haven't really used this term since my academics, in the security program years ago. But I heard somebody in the DoD recently use the term rational actor regarding Iran, somebody who was against getting involved with this. And I'm just like rolling my eyes because it's such a vague term and it doesn't take into account cultural nuances, right? So, you're talking about, let's say the regime stays in place, we would think, right, in a Western way, well, you want to survive, right? So you would do XYZ,
Yes.
you would give in to certain demands that we have because obviously now you're in an inferior position. But I don't think that's necessarily the case. And what, I might think is rational or you might think is rational, there's a whole other calculus that the Ayatollahs would have that they believe is rational. I just find rationality to be a highly subjective term. That's why I get very annoyed by it. Um, but let's say there was a new regime that was more open to working with the West. Maybe they haven't let go of, the old ideology, but there's at least something, they're more open because they care about their survival. So you're saying the two things, and I thought it was interesting. You didn't say the nuclear proliferation for, I mean, that's the obvious thing, but you're also talking about exporting terrorism and terrorist propaganda, that would have to stop as well.
Of course,
Yeah.
because this is the most dangerous part, actually, and yeah, it's important to have not only a regime willing to work with the West, in terms of like if it continues to be an Islamic regime, but work with the
Mhm.
West. No, this formula will not work. What's gonna work is having a secular regime that reflects the ambitions and desires and the way of thinking of the Iranian people, who are very open-minded, very courageous,
Mhm.
very pro-Western, by the way, unlike the people in the Arab world, for example,
Mhm.
like most of the populations are very anti-Western, but in Iran, no, they are very pro-Western, they are very pro-freedom, pro-democracy. So we need like someone to reflect this in the leadership. This person will definitely be more willing to cooperate with the West, do great things to his people, to their own people, and for the region. Actually, this will stabilize the region dramatically. You can't imagine, like it will bring us to the point when there was peace, at least for a short period of time in
Right.
the 1970s. When everyone was thinking about, okay, now we had wars with Israel, and so let's make peace treaties with Israel. And we started to see other countries doing one peace treaty after the other until this evil Islamic revolution happened. So I hope we go back to this point again and resume the work that was interrupted by the Islamic revolution some 46 years ago or so.
Wow. Well, every day that goes by, these days, we're going to see so many rapid developments. And I really hope, for the sake of Israel, the entire Middle East, and the United States, that we see more peaceful relations soon. So, Dalia Ziada, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah.
Thank you for defending Israel, and thank you for your courage and your excellent analysis.